Welcome to the P1, P2 Travel Hackers podcast. I'm your co-host, Matt Sack.
And I'm Seth Rudner.
And we want to welcome to our show, Chris Su from Little Boy from Taiwan. I'm so excited to have you here today, Chris. Chris and I go way back from our time working together in DevOps at Facebook. And you currently, Chris, you work at TikTok now. And so you have a ton of insights just in general on the social space. But what we've brought you here to talk about today is, number one, your hot takes on partner programs in 2025 and getting us kind of kicked off on the right foot from a loyalty and travel hacking perspective. And then the second part of the show, what we're going to do is talk to Chris about this incredible blog that he has built called Little Boy from Taiwan, which if you haven't seen, go check it out now. It's just awesome. Your videography, photography, mind-blowing. So we're just super lucky to have you here. But well, before we jump in, I have to ask, are either of you also in like a half a foot of snow? I'm here in Houston, Texas right now. And literally I woke up today and my kids made snow angels and threw snowballs. What's the situation in San Francisco and Whistler?
I'll let San Francisco go first because you can probably guess.
Our weather is, 65, 70, sunny skies, pretty good. I wish we had snow, but if we want to drive to Tahoe, there's our snow, right? So
it hasn't snowed in a couple of weeks, so we definitely have snow. It's -3 Celsius, which is about 25 in freedom units. So lots of snow and ice, but no new powder in about a week.
So we have more powder here in Texas than you have.
Yeah, you do.
That is nuts. But I will say it was pretty awesome. My kids' first time they've ever experienced snow this morning. So that was just like kind of a trip to get to experience that with them together. Okay, so look, we're going to jump right in and we're going to roll into our first segment of the day. Chris, tell us what you are here to talk about.
I would love to share some of my findings for hottest partner programs of 2025. I'll kind of break it down into two chunks. The first program I'm going to go after is the Alaska Airlines program. And the second one is actually the American Airlines program, which both are part of One World. So if you're a Skyflume or a Star Alliance fan, I'm sorry, but a lot of value is actually on One World right now.
Chris, you're in San Francisco. That's got to be killer.
I know. I'm sorry to all my Star Alliance fans, but yeah, it is what it is, right? I fly a lot to Japan and Singapore and Korea, and One World just somehow fits the cake. A lot easier forward access as a market point.
Are you a JAL fan over ANA?
I'm a JAL fan. I love ANA, but with the recent refresh of the A350s from JAL, I think they're the king right now. There's no way around it.
So give us tell us a little bit more when you think about Alaska. Big changes going on over there, right, with the merger. So what does that mean for folks who may have already stashed points there? How about folks who don't have points in that program, limited transfer options?
Yeah, I think for the folks who've been on the Alaska bandwagon, it's been a great time for those that are looking for redemption. In fact, just last week, for those that are looking to book Starlux business class, there's wide open availability in March, going back to Taiwan for 75K, nice. Which, again, I think is a steal for what you get on Starlux business class, right? For those that are looking to maybe hop over to Asia, with Alaska points, it's very easy to do a layover in Hawaii, right, for a day, and then hop over to wherever you want to go, whether it's Japan or Korea or Singapore. And you can do that for only 60K Alaska points, which is awesome. Yeah.
That's for those business, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
For those that are joining, I think it's a great time with the Alaska Hawaii mergers, right? It's very easy to get a lot of credit cards now to get a plethora of points, and to kind of begin your journey in this space.
That sounds like a great deal. What are some credit cards you might recommend to get started with Alaska if you were going to get your first one?
So I'm always a big fan of Bank of America's Alaska Visa Signature card and their business card. It wasn't like the old days where you could churn out like a card every 90 days. I think they have the new rule in place. But it's still a great benefit for the first year. I think 75K for 3K spend is as a no-brainer. One tip I give a lot of people is try to get your cards up front before property tax season. That way you can put a lot of these spend very quickly without having to think about it. On the other end, actually, I think the Hawaiian Airlines card from Barclays, if that isn't closed already, is another great way. It's very easy to get. And those points can be transferred one-to-one. If you're doing a P1, P2 kind of situation, having that consolidate into one account is also a great way for you to kind of get a lot of business classes going. And that's what I actually did with my parents, right? So they both applied for the Hawaiian Airlines Barclays card, consolidated all the points, and now one of them has like 300K of AS points. So it's great.
Actually, because that's kind of the situation I find myself in. So I was following all the blogs prior to the merger and decided to make a speculative transfer over. This was during the 30% transfer bonus from Amex over to Hawaiian. And so I was like, I'm going to take a gamble here, hope that it goes 1-to-1. And I think it dumped like 250K in there, just knowing about those awesome redemptions. And now I have them there. What is the best redemption you've seen recently on Alaska? You mentioned Starlux. Is that it?
Starlux is one of the best if you're going into Taiwan, right? I think bar none of the big three in Taiwan, Starlux is the number one carrier to go to now. But I would to say if it's the best redemption, there are two ways to play it. I think if you're looking for that first class experience, right? First class on JAL is actually still the best redemption, whether it's on AA or Alaska. I think the award availability pops up, 2-3 weeks out, but sometimes it can pop out even 3-4 months out, as I've seen for November. If you're flying from, I think, a JFK to Haneda, there was like one opening, which is really rare, but it happens. Speaking of which, I think using Alaska points for Japan Airlines business class is one of the best redemptions out there to this day. I've been doing this since 2014, and yeah, I think they haven't really devalued it yet that much, fingers crossed, but the amount of service and the quality of class you get for those points is bar none. I think it's one of the best redemptions out there still.
Love those picks. And by the way, for those who are already at Chris's blog and scrolling through it right now, please check out his Starlux reviews. I think you've done one recently. Is there one or two?
I've done 3, actually. I think 2 of them are like, if you just type in Starlux business class, it's like top 3 on Google
That's
search
awesome.
right now. I also did the one for their new Galactic business class lounge, which actually the general manager came out and was like, "Oh, are you doing a blog?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and then kind of introduced me to all the layouts and whatnot, which is really nuts. I think that's the kind of service, right, that you expect for these kinds of lounges. And so again, not to be such a fanboy of Starlux, so I think they're doing a killer job right now in this market. Let's kind of move on to American Airlines as well. I think AS and AA work hand in hand with each other. I'm going to give my flowers to American Airlines first, though, because they have been with me since 2014, and I think I got the most value out of it across the board, really. Back then, it was so easy to use AA points, right? You could just get a Barclays card, spend a pack of gum, and get 60,000 AA miles, right? I think the golden age is getting the city card, the aviator card, the business class card, and stacking it all together. So I did that in 2018. I think me and my wife basically flew around the world for like 210 AA miles, and we were flying first class, business class, across multiple airlines. One of the best redemptions to date, actually. But why is it still one of the biggest partners of 2025? I think it really comes down to the demographics of people traveling, right? I think right now, a lot of folks are looking into Asia, particularly Japan. And Japan Airlines knows this, right? So in this rare occurrence, there's a ton of availability at times with American Airlines on flights to Japan. And one of the ways that I showcase visually to a lot of the folks who are interested is that, with AA, you're able to very, very likely pick different airports from Japan that you want to get in and out of, right? And one of the powers of AA is the ability for you to fly, let's just say 60K points from SFO to Haneda. And then you can find a route back from Narita back to SFO or to LA, right? And that's the power of one-way tickets. I think a lot of times when people book business class tickets, they always think round trip, and it's really hard for them to kind of, piece things together. So that's another tip I'll give people is when you're using these points, think one way rather than a round trip, because it's a lot easier for you to strategically place your itinerary together there. And AA does a wonderful job with that. I think their awards availability tracker is still really relevant. I use it a lot. And then of course cross references with like BA and other folks there. Another option of why I think AA is great is if you're going to Korea, it costs the same as going to Japan. So you get a free business class ticket for the same cost. Same thing actually if you go to Taiwan, right? It's a bit more to Singapore, but there are times where I could fly from SFO to Haneda to Changi for 60K and for 75K, which if you do the math, it's one of the best redemptions out there as well for American Airlines.
So is that technically like a stopover ticket if you do it
It
like
is a
that?
stopover ticket. Yeah. Sometimes I tell people, hey, if it's your first time in Japan, you're able to get 4 to 5 hours. Of course, you can explore the lounge itself, get a massage shower, but Haneda Airport has done such a fantastic job of overhauling their airport. People can go up and get like, a foot bath in a like onsen on the rooftop, right? Get some tempura on the side. For those that have a longer layover, Haneda now does like international tour buses, right? Where you can go into the city for a little bit and come back, and then they take care of your luggage, right? That's the power of like Japan. They'll just do everything for you, and then you can just enjoy it.
I think the last time I was there I didn't go through Haneda, I went through Narita, and we took I think we had a similar, like a short layover, but we went in anyway and just got sushi, right? And then head back to the airport, but that's a little farther. I think Haneda's right, a little bit closer, right?
Yeah. It's like 30, 45 minutes, and then so you can train, subway, whatever. It's all accessible for you there.
I like the limousine bus is actually my go-to with Haneda. It's like almost the same or sometimes quicker to get into Shinjuku.
Yes.
And then they just take your luggage and you just kind of relax on the bus.
Huge.
You don't have to worry. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's why I like Haneda the most, is like that limousine bus is lush.
It's for the price that you pay for that ticket. I think it's absolutely worth it. Tell you a fun story here. I went back to Japan in 2016. I had maybe like an 18-hour layover in Tokyo. Arrived 5:35 in the morning. Decided, you know what? I'm just going to YOLO it. I'm going to get an airport bus, go to Park Hyatt Tokyo for breakfast, right? And so, for a ticket of $18, took the limo. They took care of my luggage, went up to the top floor, got breakfast, went to Shinjuku Gyoen, came back, went back to the airport, and off I go, right? So, yeah, to your point, that limo is amazing. That's a result.
That's just like expert level. That's definitely not beginner Tokyo hack.
yeah, for
Know
sure.
what you're doing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Chris, tell us a little bit of like maybe what a hidden gem in one of your picks is, or whether that's maybe an economy redemption that you've seen this really good across one of those two programs, or maybe it's actually not one of those two programs, but it's kind of outside and overlooked.
Yeah, I think one of the hidden gems really is utilizing Honolulu as your layover spot to get into Asia. I think that is one of the most underutilized strategies out there. I think when beginners and pros alike, they focus too much on maximizing their redemptions. They're always looking for nonstop flights to Asia, which is at this current point is near impossible. But there's so much availability for you to go from Hawaii into Asia, right? Now, case in point, just last year, I flew my parents and my wife to Japan. And of course, it's really hard to get 4 business tickets, never alone 2 tickets to Japan. But I knew that if I could just fly everyone to Hawaii first, I would have no problem getting my redemptions into Japan. And so lo and behold, there were 4 business class seats available on Hawaiian Airlines utilizing AA points, right? Now, this is fun because instead of 60K points, it only costed me 57,500 points per person. So that redemption strategy for me was no brainer. Obviously, we flew into Narita, which, is a bit further, but again, to your point, like the Luma bus is amazing, right? You have Wi-Fi on board, you can take a nap, you'll get there in like an hour and a half. It's great. I say the strategy to everyone out there that if you are booking flights for more than 2 people, this is probably the best bet for you to get business class. Especially in a competitive, time frame like March, April for Japan, October, November for Japan. Like think about Hawaii as your like entry point. So like it's easier for you.
I love that. And what a better place to stop over too for a couple nights overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's say we have a listener that has never done a lay flat and they just want to have a nice lay flat experience. What's a good first time play to make that happen?
Oh, that's a good question. It's tricky because I know some of the airlines are looking at my blog right now. So if points wasn't a problem, I would say Starlux's business class is probably the best. And they have this thing called 0G, which is essentially the best thing that came out of any airplane. 0G basically changes the seat almost into a lie flat, but it was based off of the aeronautical programs, all the NASA programs, where you basically feel like you're just floating in air. And so that kind of function on the business class seats, I've never fell asleep so fast in my life from that function alone. Like the moment you go into 0G on Starlux business class, within like 3 to 5 minutes, you're asleep because you're just like, oh, it's so comfortable. Right? I will say the new Japan Airlines business class lay flight is probably my favorite right now though, just because the bedding they provide, called bed, BEDD, so comfy. And what I like to do sometimes is, every time I travel, I always greet the flight attendants. Always provide, in Japanese, we call it omiyage, which is like a small gift. And omiyage is just to say like, thank you for your service and for, helping us on this flight here. At times, they'll obviously treat you a little better. And then, if you need extra pillows, they're like, yeah, have some extra pillows. We'll throw in an extra blanket. Not the blankets are amazing, right? They're not just like wool blankets. They're like super soft. And yeah, it's just a great experience. And with the way that the A350 structure works, it's so breathable. Like you feel like you're on a bed. Yeah, I think I've talked to other folks. That's still probably the best product right now out there for a lie flat. Domestic wise though, I would say Delta One's, business class seats are still the best, from a domestic standpoint. Yeah.
And you'd put them a notch above Polaris.
Yeah, I love Polaris, but Polaris's hard product is great to a certain point. But I think Delta One's recent updates and their service makes it a lot better. I think just the quality of the pillows. I know Saxfit is with United, but I still feel like it's a little cheap. But yes, I think Delta's done a really good job kind of upgrading and retrofitting a lot of their business class lines.
What about Anna's, like the room, the suite?
Yeah, so like I said, I'm a JAL fanboy, so I haven't had much chance to fly with them. I know the room is great. I would say if I flew on it, I would love to kind of give them the review there. I would caveat by saying that having flown Japan Airlines with A350 business class though, I've heard that it's still better than the room. I think the layout in the ergo is actually a lot better too.
Yeah, it is hard to compete with an A350 because the 777, it's going to have that higher cabin altitude at the end of the day, right. So you're not going to be as refreshed.
Yes. I think one of the nice things that I'm seeing, and I see this across two of the airlines that I've flown recently, is that they started providing face masks for you. So case in point, when I was flying Starlux, you obviously get your amenity kit, and then they'll give you a face mask. Hawaiian Airlines does this as well now when I flew to Japan. So it's a nice way to kind of combat that as well. The dryness of the air.
I'm just loving like you two both nerd out on like you're probably the two that I know that maybe know the most about like the differentiations between different hard products. So I'm loving that. Chris, I just, by the way, the second time today that I've heard the tip bringing those gifts for the flight attendants, and in totally different context. Do you do this every time you fly business? And then has it ever not been received well? Is there a typical gift that you recommend giving, not giving? Is there a way to mess this up?
No, there isn't really. I have this, mantra in life, which is, treat others how you want to be treated, right? And so having flown so many times, one of the biggest things that I see is that I think sometimes we treat flight attendants like they should just be there, right? But they're humans after all. And, I put them in my shoes, right? If, a whole cabin crew is, being very tired or just had a late layover, they may not be at their best, right? And so for me, even at work, like small gifts kind of bring people to life, right? Cause you're kind of thinking about them and, you're being empathetic. And so I've been doing this since 2018. Gifts wise, depending where I'm originating from, if I'm flying out of SFO, obviously chocolate is the way to go at the airport, at duty free. If I'm in Singapore, I would get local delicacies. Vodka coffee is probably one of the best gifts I've given so far, but it's just a thought that counts, right? I had a situation where we were flying home from Incheon at Asiana, and I can already sense the flight crew was being a bit stressed out just from too many people complaining about why the flight is delayed, and you can see that they're a bit stressed out and tired. So I kind of divvy up the gifts and wrote them a small note like, hey, thank you for your service. This is great. And as we were about to fly out, one of the flight crews came on board and actually wrote a small note for me. Of course, it's not like perfect English, but it was like, hey, this gift meant the world to me. Like, it was really tiring. My boss was arguing with me. I almost wanted to cry, but your gift made it, super valuable. And so it's stuff that like this that makes me like really happy, that I'm able to make someone's day. But most importantly, it makes the flight attendants and everyone feel like, hey, this guy's great. Like, he's not here to just like command us. He's here to enjoy the service that we're about to give him.
I love that story.
That's great,
and
yeah.
It's a great note to end this segment on, but also I think what it really speaks to is just what you said. It's the thought. Like, you don't just go and buy some random gift. Like, you're actually considering your place of origin. You're taking into account what their vibe is. I just absolutely love it. And I think it's a really good segue to the next segment where we're going to talk about, Chris, the way you've built Little Boy from Taiwan to really stand out as a niche travel blog. And so we're going to kind of get into the practical tips around building something that's really niche that stands out.
Love it.
All right, welcome back. And we are going to dive in again with Chris. Chris is not only a travel hacker extraordinaire, he is also the founder of Little Boy from Taiwan. Again, go check it out right now. It's just incredible, like really a notch above every other travel blog I've read really ever in terms of just the content that you put out. And I love the layout. Also, I think the blogging, whatever platform you're using, is really nice and visual and easy to navigate and just stands out really well. But would love for you to talk to the listeners today around how you did that, right? How did you get it to be what it is today? What is the niche that you carved out? And then kind of what recommendations or tips or tricks would you have for somebody who's just getting started in the, say, the blogging or travel blogging space?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for your kind words. You know, it makes me want to write more and take more pictures. But yeah, I think it all originated from a side hobby that I was doing back in 2015-16. I took up photography and it was kind of like my side job. I'm a visual person. I would rather look at pictures than words. And so it was something that kind of resonated with me as I was, you know, just building a small blog here and there. One thing I noticed back then was that, you know, people were just, they would try to write in a template format, which is just like a lot of words, some small 500px pictures, a bunch of ads, and a bunch of hyperlinks. And, you know, I come from a really strong UI UX background. And for me, that brings me OCD. Like I can't tolerate it. Like the whole point is to be really friendly. Everyone can use it. Even the grandma can use it. Right. And for me, like it was hard. I think if you actually look at like global websites, like the Points Guy, 1 Mile at a Time, they actually underwent some of the same issues where it was just too wordy, right? And the pictures weren't really clear enough there. Another thing that I found out was that, and of course, as they're working at Facebook with you, Matt, is that a lot of the time, some of the best first-time captures or retentions come from pictures, right? I think visualization tells a story. And I think your first impression when someone opens up your blog makes a really big difference. So if they see there's a lot of high professional pictures, they're keen on understanding, like, oh, tell me more. Like, what is the story you're trying to get at here? And so I was kind of able to blend a lot of my photography skills into this section here. I started off kind of using a pretty basic format. I found it to be a bit tedious. Again, the pictures were just, you know, straight. It was kind of capped at a limit. I wanted full bleed, which is really hard at that time. So I actually moved over to Squarespace. This is not sponsored by Squarespace, but yeah, I just found their format to be so useful, especially their photography templates. And I've been using them for my own photography website for a while. I figured why not? You know, it's very customizable. I can code it in a way that it fits my needs there. And so fast forward to 2021, I decided, you know what, let's just make the blog as photogenic as possible. Because I think that's what a lot of blogs are missing these days. And you talk about niche. A lot of blogs are really focusing on words, hyperlinks, right? You know, call to actions. I'm not. Like, you can barely find 2 or 3 hyperlinks in each blog, because the whole emphasis is that I want to tell a story with each of my blog posts. Like, why is this hotel great? Why is this lounge great? Right? I'm not really here to try to, you know, generate a lot of ad revenue, right? Like, my whole point is, if my quality of content is good enough for you to like, then I hope my next action is that you'll book that flight or that hotel or that lounge. So that's kind of how Little Boy from Taiwan came to be to its current state. In terms of the quality itself and the direction of where Little Boy from Taiwan went, I noticed at times there were a lot of folks who would review hotels, but they would always review the same hotels. Like, everyone reviews the Park Hyatt Tokyo. Everyone reviews the Waldorf Astoria, Beverly Hills, right? It's like, oh, it's great. I think I know why everyone's using the same points and the same free night certificates. But there are some fantastic hotels out there that are like mid-tier, that are a bit more like less well-known, that I think people can really enjoy. And what better way to convey that story than to take really high quality pictures and to, you know, describe that story for people. The example I can give actually was, when I was in Singapore, there is a boutique hotel called the Artisan. It's a small kind of boutique chain that's like really upscale. And as you know, Singapore has a lot of high-end hotels there. So most people would stay at MBS or stay at the Ritz-Carlton. But when I was at the Artisan, I was just in awe of like the design and like the people working there. And so I wanted to capture that in my blog. And so I kind of drafted up a narrative of like why this hotel is one of my favorites in 2024. And actually to this day, it's like my top 5 hotel right now. And that story kind of helped out to a point where, you know, if you Google Artisan Singapore review, like it's now top 5, right? So again, Google does track the quality and of your blog to kind of help that out there, right? I got a note from Artisan Singapore one day, a general manager saying, you know, I've forwarded this blog to some of the folks on our team. One of the folks in our housekeeping was so, you know, overwhelmed that they're like, if you come back, let us know, right? Again, it's just stuff like that makes me want to continue to write, you know, on a true like integrity level, like why I think these hotels are great, right? I'll give you another case in point. LXR Roku in Kyoto. It's one of my favorite redemptions. I wrote one in 2023. I revisited them in 2024, in springtime. You know, just on an off note, I wrote to the general manager, hey, I wrote this blog for you in 2023. Well, I love your hotel. I plan on coming back with some of my friends. I'm going to write it again on a different room. And I said, you know, don't give me no extra treatment. I just want to let you know, like, I'm coming. This is me, right? Of course, you know, they're like, we'll give you extra treatment because you're coming back the second time. But what was very interesting was that they actually read my blog, the first blog post, and took note of what was wrong with what I had captured. And when I came back the second time around, they were a bit, I would say, like, persuasive in letting me know that they fixed the problems, right? Hey, we upgraded this. Our service is a lot better here. And so that for me, I took that as a pride and joy of like, hey, even the hotels are reading my blogs and they're taking that and implementing feedback to make their hotels a lot better. So yeah, that's just some of the things that, you know, makes Little Boy from Taiwan a bit more unique in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. I love to hear about the craftsmanship of the writing and trying to produce a quality product. And obviously that's helped the hotels improve, and it's just a win-win and delivering more value to the world.
Yeah, one thing that I'm wondering is, like, I think we all have that eye for design. So Seth, in the app that he's built, Av Squad, I just absolutely love the design that he's put in, and he's working with a really talented designer. You're the same. You think that like aesthetics really matter, and we are constantly trying to up our game on the podcast. Whether that's, you might not notice it now, but little tweaks like using Camo Pro to get, really great depth of field footage during recording, or, upgrading our mics and equipment like that. For people who are just getting, you talked about image quality, people are just getting into that game. Yeah. What would you recommend? How can creators improve on that front if they're kind of just getting?
I think that's tried and true, right? Practice makes perfect. You got to go out and take pictures. For me, I've been taking pictures forever, right? And to this day, I still think there's a lot of room for improvement, but it's not something that one can just easily take. You can give someone a Sony A7R5, and if they have like no years of experience, the picture's gonna suck, right? So I always tell people, if you want to get started on content creating, go out there and practice, right? It's okay to have your first few months of pictures be okay, but at least you're learning from it there. And once you get over that hump, it's a lot easier. Camera gear doesn't matter. In fact, almost all my pictures on the blog is just shot from my iPhone. It's hard to believe, it's shot from an iPhone. And so it's really not the gear itself, but more of like, just years of practice and understanding what you want to see and what you want to portray. It's one of the greatest lessons that I learned when I was at UC Irvine studying art history, right? It's like, if you want to tell a narrative, you capture it with what you want to see. And
do you use a gimbal at all for any of your photos?
I don't actually.
Videos.
iPhone is, shout out to Apple, but their camera product is amazing. Some of the footages I take, I'm just walking with it like this the whole time, and it's totally fine. Like, I think gimbal is starting to become a bit irrelevant. At a certain phase, I think it will be really irrelevant in the next few years, though, if Apple continues to innovate like this.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of, now in post-production, you can do so much stabilization after the fact. I will say, quick plug for my favorite gimbal, if you don't want to go like crazy with your DSLR, it's actually the DJI Osmo Pocket. Has been probably my favorite, hands down, like travel photography toy. It's, a couple $100s, but it's just stunning. And it's great for capturing hyperlapse footage, or even just kind of like motion time lapse is one of my favorite. If you want to kind of set it up for sunset, things like that. So that's one that I would recommend. I know the Insta360 is also one that I've seen. It's a little bit more low profile, but you're absolutely right, because like there's so much you can do now with just an iPhone.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy because I think when I first started in 2014, I think of like the iPhone 5 and 6, or not 6, the iPhone 5, gold one, right? Everyone's like, oh, gold. And I look back from 2014 to now, but like throughout the years, like, yes, my composition has changed a little bit. But the focus element remains the same, right? It's like, I really want to capture like the beauty or like specific elements of the hotel, right? And so that never changes. So when I tell people to go out and shoot, the reason why practice makes perfect is because you're going to find your format. You're going to find what you really like to take, and it becomes very easy down the road.
How do you handle the etiquette of photographing in a lounge or video in a lounge or plane and dealing with like all these
great question
people everywhere?
It's so funny. I always laugh to myself when I first started, like in 2014, 15, where it was so awkward. Like you're just trying to whip out your camera, but like you're like, oh, I don't want to take a picture of this. I feel awkward. Flight attendant comes around, you're like, oh, it's even more awkward. They look at you, you look at them. Then suddenly you don't want to do it, right? Nowadays, I just go up and say, hey, I'm going to take a picture of the seats, or if I'm in a lounge, I'll let them know, hey, I just want to take a few pictures of the lounge to capture like, the beauty of what you guys created here. And you'll be surprised. A lot of times they'll clear out, or they'll just kind of let some of their clients know, or some of the guests know, like, this guy's just taking pictures of the lounge. It's just as simple as that. It never hurts to ask or let people know what you're doing. Worst comes to worst, people may say, hey, do you mind deleting that picture? Which has never happened to me, to be honest. But I'm also cognizant of like, if the lobby is too crowded, I'm not going to take a picture. I might wait till later on. Case in point, when we were at the Hilton Kyoto, which recently opened up, right? It's a brand new hotel in Kyoto. First day I got there, the lounge is beautiful. I'll just do a shameless plug of my blog post there, but the first picture is literally the lobby lounge, right? But it wasn't like that. I had to wait until nighttime to take a picture of that, because during the daytime, it was so packed with people, right? And it doesn't do justice to what I'm trying to convey and capture. So sometimes you have to be patient. Like photography, there are certain times where you can take pictures, and there are certain times where you just can't take pictures. So, yeah.
I mean, if there's one theme throughout everything you do, it's just the intentionality and thought that you put into that you, it's just kind of like the gifts with the flight attendants. You're really being thoughtful about, like, I have to wait until the lobby is clearing, to wait till night to take this photo, because that matters so much. I love that. Chris, can you tell us, I am curious with you working at, oh, by the way, one quick plug, because you're mentioning just the cameras get in the way, and people might interact weirdly with that. My Christmas gift from Leah, my wife, because she's at Meta, was the Meta Ray-Bans. Like, I don't know. I was like really skeptical. I didn't open them up for a month. I was like, I don't really need these. And I'm going to be honest, it's a game changer when it comes to just recording content. Like, I was out with my kids this morning and I put them on, and I had gloves on and was packing snowballs. And I was just like, hey, Meta, record a video. And so I have these just lovely videos with my kids. And it allows me to be like present in a way that I wasn't necessarily with my phone in front of me. But I'm thinking the same thing for going out and actually filming content. Like if you were to go, and film your seat or things like that, just a lot more inconspicuous and gets you that kind of first person POV. So a pro tip. But one thing I was curious about is, with you working at TikTok, how do you think about you're building a longer form blog relative to a lot of this really short form content that there's just so many travel bloggers on Instagram and TikTok. What do you think about in terms of like the relative advantages of those two, and why are you, for example, on the blog and not necessarily as much on those?
It's ironic. Those people ask me why, like, I don't create a TikTok, or why I don't create like an Instagram for Little Boy from Taiwan. And, the irony is that when you're on those platforms, it's actually even more tiring to think and draft consistent content than it is to actually write a blog post. I say that because I've seen a lot of bloggers who invest a lot of time into these short form videos. And, first few months, they're like, yes, I got this. More people are looking at it. But over time, they burn out, because they're just like, what ideas do I have next? I have to do this. I have to do that, right? That being said, there is a lost art in writing good like comprehensive blog posts that I think people still like. Actually, if you look at, some of the best blog posts on travels, whether it's hotels or flights, they are detailed, right? And they craft a story. And I think fast forward, long term, I think people are still going to reflect on that and still be interested in that. I think, again, I'm not trying to cater to like everyone. I think most of my strategy is focused on like these unique and these, wonderful hotels or lounges that I review. But I think a lot of the folks who read my blogs are folks who have done these travels before, who are very curious and want to know in detail and research, right? So yeah, I talked to some of my audience members before, and a lot of times they'll do their research beforehand, but they want to see my perspective just to confirm their bias, right? And I think this is going to stay. I think as, Instagram and TikTok continues to promote a lot of these, travel places, it's easy for that first step, but it's really hard for the next few steps for them to actually make that booking and understand why. And so I think that's why I really got into it. Maybe in the future, but I think for now, my time is kind of tied up. So yeah, blog it is for now.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I think you're right too. Like the short form content would just probably burn people out. You can see it a lot in creators as well that have a big hit, and there's the pressure to keep the momentum going every day to keep the numbers going up for the algorithm.
Maybe last point here is that another reason why I actually didn't do it is because I would lose the focus of what I want for Little Boy from Taiwan, right? My intention of this blog is to curate a story of each hotel and place. And if I'm going to be working on different platforms, it detracts from that experience. It's harder for me to really build quality content, good pictures, have to ship from, shooting landscape to shooting portrait, like just a lot of small things to consider. But I think the quality of my blog would go down in terms of that. And that's why I've also kind of stopped myself from doing it.
That's great. So you've sold photos to hotels. How does that intersect with the blogging?
So it's funny. So this started in 2016. I was at Fleming Steakhouse for happy hour. And this lovely older lady was just like, oh, looking at some of the pictures I was taking. And she's like, you could sell these pictures to hotels. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, how can I do this? Right? And they're like, oh, I can introduce you to, some of my clients who, have hotels and they just need pictures. And, jokingly, she's like, a lot of pictures you take are better than what I see on the walls. They're just so basic. So, okay, I'll give it a try. And so back then I was really into landscapes. Like landscapes was my thing. And so I was able to convince some of these, I can't name them, but some of these hotels to buy some of my pictures. And yeah, it turns out landscapes makes you a lot of money because they have to distribute it across all their hotels, right? So, which is great. I think nowadays it's a lot harder because a lot of these companies are willing to now use AI to generate their own images. So, and it's a lot more competitive, right? So the pay isn't that great anymore. So I didn't really focus on that element, but I would say it was a fun experience. It connected me to a lot of these different hotels. I was introduced to the Tetra, in Sunnyvale, which is an autograph collection hotel, which is super great. Very Japanese-esque. Also opened the door for me, when I was at, the Rosewood Sandhill for a little bit and kind of, allowed me to see and kind of interview them on like why their hotel is not the way it is. So yeah, it's great, but I wouldn't say it's something I didn't really focus on.
I would love to get into that game, but all I have is my phone photos. I don't know if anybody's going to buy my iPhone photos. Hey, Chris, last question. You mentioned Squarespace. What is one must-have tool for just managing your content or optimizing your blog, or maybe if it's even for shooting photography that you haven't, talked about yet?
This is going to sound kind of sad, but Lightroom Classic has been the absolute tool for all things considered. Even though I hate to pay the subscription fees, the way that Adobe has implemented Lightroom Classic, it just makes stacking my photos, creating portfolios, labeling them. It's just so easy, right? Every time I import, thousands of pictures, it's very easy for me to disseminate what is what. Label codes go on automatically. And it's very easy for me to output. So maybe that's why you see my blog posts come up really quickly. It's thanks to Lightroom, honestly, because I'm able to kind of quickly adjust on my photos, get them in order, and output them and export them into Squarespace.
Love it. Great tip. Great tips all around. Okay, Chris, we have one more segment for you that I did not tell you about, but as we kind of come in for a landing here, it's going to be time for our new segment, Final Approach, where we're going to shoot some rapid fire questions at you, Chris. You got to land this plane. It's got to be fast, so quick answers. No thinking, just what's your gut? All right, I'm going to fire them at you. Number 1, window seat or aisle seat?
A window.
Favorite airport for a layover? Okay, oh yeah, totally agree. Most overrated airline?
I'm saying this. Singapore Airlines.
No, they're listening. They're listening. No.
I can't believe I'm saying.
That's all right. Preferred points program, Amex, City, or Chase?
Amex.
Okay, yeah, agreed. Carry on or checked?
Carry on, always.
Carry on. Oh, yeah, obviously. Next bucket list destination for you?
Maldives.
Oh, all right, totally. Love it. And then one piece of travel gear you never leave home without?
My Sony A7R camera.
Love it. Love so many good creator tips to this episode. Chris, thank you. You landed the plane safely. We all got we all got here, okay? We're here on the runway, and now we're just taxiing to the gate. So while we wait, I just am so curious. We caught you on quite the interesting day, or at least set of days. What's going on? Are things cool at TikTok? How are you doing? Life's good. You still got a job. What's going on, man?
Honestly, it's been a fun ride. We were only banned for 12 hours, and so we came back, and so BAU. So yeah, I feel like nothing's changed. If those that wished us banned, I'm sorry, we're back online, but it is what it is.
Well, for your sake, I'm just glad you're glad you're here. Glad it makes it even more special that you came here to share your time with us today. You got a lot going on, Chris. It's just been so lovely to talk to you. Again, for folks who haven't checked it out, please check out Little Boy from Taiwan. Go there now. Check out your reviews. They're really incredible. And just want to thank you for coming to the pod today. It's been awesome talking to you. And for those who are listening, tune in next time for more travel hacking tips and entrepreneurship stories. We'll see you next time on the P1 P2 Travel Hacking Podcast. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.